Mean button.
Want to check my volume on YouTube?
I can't. Well, I guess I could unmute it. It'll just be all weird and shit.
Nah, don't worry about it. I mean, we changed it, so and I didn't.
Could
Hear me
unmute it.
fine, right?
It'll just be all weird and shit.
Nah, don't worry about it. I mean, we changed it through, and I didn't.
Could unmute it. It'll just be all weird. Seems alright.
Am I talking? I mean, we changed it through, and I didn't.
Sorry, it's starting to echo for me, so I can't understand anything.
I mean, we changed. Schizophrenia sets in.
Yeah. So let me see if I can turn my volume down a bit. Where am I going to be able to actually change that at? I guess I can do that on the mic itself. All right, I'm turning the volume down. Is it okay for you, or is that going? Is that going up?
No, it's not going up.
Okay. All right. Let me check that. Let me unmute. Down. Is it okay for you, or is that going? Is that going up? Well, that's like all the way up. Okay. All right. Let me check that. Let me unmute. Oh, the volume doesn't change at all. Or is that going?
No, yeah, I didn't hear anything changing.
Well, that's like all the way up. Okay. All right. Let me check that. Let me unmute. Oh, the volume doesn't. All right. Let me do it digitally. We're alive, but just fixing things.
Or we can do this. Is the everyone.
Yeah, this is the start of the show.
It's like Johnny Carson when the satellite was going out, and they just talking nasty because no one wasn't really going. But it was.
All right, here we go. This shit. Nope.
No luck.
They change things, and it's hard.
That's why I don't deal with that end of it.
Oh, no, it's just gonna do that again. Ah, it'll be fine. Whatever.
All right. Satisfied?
Yep.
All right.
From the industrial wastelands of Michigan to the fruited plains of Iowa, this is the American Green.
Why will they do it cheerful, Versity?
Oh wait, I forgot. That's the volume button. Is for the headphone jack. Oh, that's just the gain. Oh well.
All right. You ready?
Yep.
From the industrial wastelands of Michigan to the fruited plains of Iowa, this is the American Greed Factory.
Why will they do it cheerful, Versity?
You from the dead. Remain exactly where you are. Until you are ordered. Burn them to ashes and then burn the ashes. That's our official motto. Now we can see you. Clasp your hands behind your heads. Stand out in the middle of the room. Stand back to back.
Who can explain the fascination of fire? What causes it? Whether young or old?
Here comes the candles who like to compare. Here comes a chopper to chop off your head.
And welcome to the American Greed Factory podcast. This is Nathan.
This is Conlon.
And tonight we have a beautiful, exciting show for you. Lots of sexy, sexy stuff to talk about. Because that's what we are. We are the sexy podcast. So, Happy New Year. Say that with-
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because it was like a week ago.
Oh yeah, I called you on New Year's Eve.
Yeah,
It's like we need to fix the audio.
Yeah. I did not get drunk on New Year's. Really, since then, I'm off my alcohol cycle now.
Cycle back on around the holidays again.
I don't know. It can really fuck your sleep up. I drink a lot. I found.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't really know, but.
Oh yeah, you have weird dreams and you don't sleep very well. So sometimes I stop. It's just not good. Not bad for you. Kind of weird. Here we are. movie today with my son that was kind of unexpected. Saw the Vanishing, starring, of course, the headlines Gerard Butler, and then anyone who's watched season 2 of Westworld, it's James Delos is the second lead, or Peter Mullen.
He's also in Ozark. You'll know him from that too.
Oh, he's seen that? Okay.
Yeah, he's like the. Have you seen Ozark?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. You should probably watch Ozark.
I've been waiting to pull the trigger on that. I think I started and then forgot what was going on. Sometimes I start thinking, like, I'm still trying to watch that Maniac show. I just gotta have to find time.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I asked my son if he wanted to see it. In the rest of the world, this movie's called Keepers. Because they're lighthouse keepers. Here, it's called The Vanishing. But if you look up where it's showing, it's called Keepers. And it says AKA The Vanishing. So this is kind of one of those weird... it's a British movie.
Yeah.
And this is the... I read a book last year. It was really interesting. It was about the Elam... I don't know how to say these Scottish words. Elamore lighthouse keepers, the 3 guys that just disappeared and they don't know what happened to them. It's also known as the Lannan Isles incident. So the story, the thing that really happened in 1900, these 3 lighthouse keepers, they went out to, this remote islands in the Hebrides, which is like, it's like islands off to the north of Scotland.
Okay.
They had a lighthouse there to keep the ships from crashing into the rocks and all that. And so the real story, they dropped these 3 guys off, and one guy's new, and the other guys very senior, and one of them was kind of a middle guy, and they weren't people of very disturbing pasts or history. Like, none of them seemed like psychotic or violent. So, like, they don't know why, but these 3 guys, they dropped them off, and then I forget how long it was, because they're on a 6-week on-off cycle, and then like halfway through, the lighthouse just kept going off, and ships were complaining, like, hey, the lighthouse isn't working. They sent people out there to see if something going on that they couldn't fix, and no one was there. And they never found any bodies, and it basically looked like there was a meal had just been prepared, and they were just like they just walked away. It's a real mystery. I mean, it really happened. And I mean, the most the best theory they have is they were having problems with their little elevator thing that they would hoist up and down for supplies and stuff from the ship landing, and they think they might have got swept away at sea in some kind of weird rip tide that just swept, because they don't know.
Yeah.
They don't know what all their belongings and stuff were there. It's nothing. And so this movie takes that and fictionalizes it, and it adds an element of they find a guy, and he attacks him, and the one kid crushes his head with a rock to stop him from attacking him, and then they go through his belongings, and they find 3 bars of gold about this long. And I mean, they add more of a story to it, because like the Gerard Butler, his character is Thomas. I know his character is James, and he's got like a wife and 2 kids, and the lighthouse keepers don't make a ton of money. And the Peter Mullen, his name's Thomas. He's like the older guy, and his wife died, and he's just kind of a lost, miserable person. Then they have the young man Connor, who, like, he tells a story about how he's basically a social outcast in Edinburgh because he's a bastard, because he doesn't know who his father is. And so they got these 3 characters, which they seem to get along. They're just working on the lighthouse and doing some things. There's a little explanation of how the lighthouse works. Not much, but I mean, it's a very slow movie. It's not like there's not a lot of action in this, but it's interesting character drama, and it's well done by everyone. And then so anyway, they find the bars of gold, and of course they had to kill the guy because he was attacking him, because he was in a little like life raft or a small boat that crashed into the island. And then when they're getting their stories together about, okay, how are we gonna get this gold off, and the older guy is like, well, we're just gonna we're gonna do our 6 weeks, we're gonna go back and then we're going to do another 6 weeks, and they were going to wait like a year, and they were going to try to find someone to sell the gold to so they get the cash, and then they would all slowly disappear because the guy said someone's going to come looking for this, and we're going to end up killed. You know, we're lighthouse keepers, not criminals. So we have to be careful with this. It's like, yeah, this sounds like a good plan. I mean, this guy's dead, and then as soon as they work that out, here comes a boat, and it's these two Danish guys, really sinister looking guys. They end up killing them all in a fight. It's a horrible, bloody, extended fight, and there was a third person on the crew, and he was a small boy, and they can't really see how, not small, but he was like maybe 14 or something, and they can't really see him at night, and Gerard Butler killed him with a hook, like because everyone's using their full Scottish accent in this. It's I killed him with a hook.
So extra O's and everything.
Yeah, all kinds of, you know. Some people said they couldn't understand what they were saying in the movie. I was like, oh, yes you can. Some of the words are weird, but it's easy to understand. They're speaking English. But yeah, so Gerard Butler becomes overwhelmed with grief because that little kid that he killed actually looks like a lot like his son. And so then, these people, it's kind of like a perfect, what's that Sam Raimi movie with
A Simple Plan?
Simple Plan, yeah. It's like, yeah, we have all this, it's ours, and it's pretty much free and clear because now everyone who knows about it is dead except us, and it just disintegrates. And at the end of the movie, Peter Mullins, the last guy left on their boat, because they take the bad guy's boat with the gold. He has nothing in his life. His wife's dead, his kids are dead. He's just sailing off with this gold, and it just ends. Just cuts the credits. Oh, that was it's like 2.5 hours long too. It's like that was a bleak movie. What do you think of that, son? Grayson was again excited about it. He's like, I want to buy that when it comes out. I love that movie. Because we had to go to some weird theater to see it. I had to go like up north of Southfield to see it. It was like an hour away. It's like, okay, we can do that. And he absolutely loved it. So
maybe he'll like Spartan.
probably showing that.
It's kind of a long, boring movie that's very specific. Also has great dialogue, but you know.
Yeah, he seems to like things like, because now he wants to borrow the book from me and read it. And I said, well, really, it's just a lot of charts and information about those three guys, and it's not fictionalized. Like, there's no dark insights into this. He says this guy worked from here to here, and he requested this, and you know, and there's one thing with like lighthouse keepers, you got to watch, you know, how much alcohol is in play, and you have to pick guys that get along. That's why they only went 6 weeks at a time, because guys don't get along, they'll kill each other on those islands. But yeah, it was. I'd say it was a good movie, maybe not for everyone, and it's definitely a little slow and bleak, but yeah, pretty much a good movie. See, we're hammering away again.
Yep. Paris must be, I don't know.
Fucking spring a leak. Oh my god.
I saw a bunch of things on Netflix.
What was something you liked?
Well, Bird Box is really good.
Yeah, I watched that last night.
Like, I don't know, like, overall, if it's, like, the greatest movie. I mean, it's a better version of The Happening, although not as hilarious. But what it does that I love is, like, it's like, would you call it, like, procedural, where it's, like, everyone's trying to figure things out, and they're, like, testing things, and, like, all, like, the cool solutions they come up with. Like, I fucking love that stuff.
Yeah, oh, and the guy's, like, tie me to a chair, and I'm going to try to watch these things on a security camera.
Yeah.
If we can see them that way. And yeah, one thing I really liked about I don't like the ridiculous magical premises sometimes, because that was my problem with The Happening. Like, it was ridiculous, but it's like, what are the rules? It's like, oh, they seem to change. With this movie, it established the bizarre rules, and it pretty much didn't break them.
Well, they kept, well, you don't know, like, they're figuring out the rules. It's like, so like the part where you figure out, like, oh, there's people that aren't affected by it, but they're trying to, like, force other people to, like, watch these things so they'll kill themselves. Like, oh, that's unfair. Or even when it's like, oh, maybe we can watch them on video. It's like, nope, they're gonna get you there too. It's like, that's unfair. And I couldn't figure out if the one guy from the mental institution, if he was like one of the cults the whole time or whatever, or if he like accidentally while drawing those pictures like was able to be infected by it through pictures. I wasn't sure about that, or if that was going on there or not.
Yeah, I don't know, because they were looking in their eyes, because their eyes get real googly.
Yeah.
And he always seemed to have the googly eyes. So I don't.
Oh, did he? Okay, I didn't look for that.
I knew that guy was trouble because the John Malkovich revealed the trick. He's like, I might be an asshole, but I'm always right. And he said, don't let that motherfucker in here. Yeah, right.
Well, he also said, don't let that pregnant girl in. So.
Yeah, but he was right. More food, but yeah. But he hadn't said that yet. So
yeah.
There was things in the writing that were. I mean, this book was written by a guy from around here. I think he lives in Fenton, Michigan, or because it was set in Michigan originally.
Okay. Well, I might. Well, because there's a rapper from Detroit in there called Machine Gun Kelly, and he's in that movie, and so I was wondering if that had some connection that way.
Yeah, the guy who wrote the book's called the same thing, Bird Box. It's actually set here, and it's based on, because there is a school for the blind around here.
Okay.
I don't know where the river. I'm sure there's rivers around here. But yeah, they repositioned it in California because that's where they film movies. Yeah, that was pretty. It was pretty good. Usually those things that become like a cultural phenomenon, I'm sort of disappointed in. But this one was actually. It's like, oh yeah, I like the acting, I like the story. A little weird. I don't necessarily like magic, but sometimes
it didn't. Well, I think it did enough. It's like, hey, we'll save a bunch of money if we just don't CGI these fucking things. They're just the wind.
Yeah, it's just they do have a physical presence, but it seems limited.
I mean, it's almost like Lost-ish or whatever. It's just, you only see it really at the end where it's like they're all gathered together and there's kind of whispers of people's voices and shit. Like that's the only time it really kind of takes form, and still even then it doesn't really.
No. And then when they set off the car's perimeter sensors when they're trying to drive blind, it's like, well, the car senses something, but it's just a signal, like it can't. And then they were crawling around on the car.
This vaguely remind me of that Chris Carter pilot that they did for Amazon called The After.
Yeah, it did. I thought of that when I watched this. It's like, what's happening? Nobody knows. Let's all get in the house, and we all got the same birthday.
Yeah. I have to watch that again. But yeah, that one that was supposed to go to production, but didn't. But that had like a great ending to it. That was like also total bullshit. Where like they just find some weird monster that's like heads upside down or whatever, and he's like covered in Mayan artifacts, and he just like runs away. It's like, what the fuck was that? And it's the end of the world. It's like, well, that's a good pilot. I'm pretty sure they'd never pull this off. But
yeah, it was a good pilot. I was hoping for it, but it didn't happen.
Yeah.
Then they got into X-Files Revisited, and that's done.
Oh, is that done? Because I thought they were doing a third season without Gillian Anderson.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I thought that was it.
No, they did a second season of The Return, and I haven't watched either because I just saw the first episode and was incredibly disappointed. After I realized like it wasn't a joke, it's like, oh, they're serious.
Yeah, I watched the first and second seasons. The second season had a severe quality control drop off. Like the last 3 episodes, it's like, are they just fucking around? Are they just having fun? Like, could they not keep people sober on the set and in the writer's room? Or, I mean, it tried to recapture some of the quirkiness and weirdness of X-Files, but it seemed just like watered down version of it.
Yeah.
Like, it didn't seem like anyone, like the first X-Files was cool because everyone was a smart ass, but they also seemed engaged at the same time. It's like, we're going to play this serious, but we're also going to react to like, what the hell is this crap? Whereas the reboot, it just seemed like it was trying to be too serious and goofy at the same time.
Yeah.
And then the stories, like I said, the quality of the stories was wildly uneven. And I did not understand that. It's like, well, it's the same. It's like they switched showrunners in the middle or something.
Well, I heard someone describe it as something as they're saying like the second to last episodes of like both those seasons was the best because they were written by like their head writers and not Chris Carter, and Chris Carter did the finales of both those seasons.
Oh, okay.
So apparently Chris Carter just doesn't have it anymore.
Yeah, that could be.
But
I don't know.
But yeah, I think they're gonna do a third season, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm not gonna hold.
Or
my
a
breath.
14th season or whatever, whatever its continuing season is.
Whatever they're doing. But yeah, Bird Box.
Watch it. Everybody else has.
Yeah, not bad for a $18 million movie.
Oh, is it only? Huh. That's pretty
That's well, box office mojo. So I don't know. I'm not.
well. I figure I don't know, like Sandra Bullock. I mean, she was producing, so she just didn't take a salary or something.
Yeah, I don't know. It's, I just know that Netflix is warning people now. Hey, don't run around with blindfolds with kids, even though it looks cute. It's dangerous, and don't paint your car windows and try to drive the systems because they're really not that sensitive.
I like the. Apparently, the director, like a bunch of sleepless nights over. Sandra Bullock wanted to be method, so her blindfold didn't have like little like holes cut in it, so she could actually see. So she was actually blind while she was doing all the stuff.
That's hardcore.
And that fucking like gave like the director a nervous breakdown.
Yeah, because it's like, well, how much is our writer? How much if Sandra Bullock breaks her neck and dies? It's good to see John Malkovich back. I forgot how much I missed his.
Well, you know what? Guess what movie we're doing next week?
What's that?
Being John Malkovich.
Okay, well, good. I'll get my Malkovich fixed. Then.
Yeah. Then you'll be tired of him.
Never be tired of the. What was the talented Mr. Ripley?
Seeing that? I thought that was with Matt Damon and Jude Law. Was he also in that as well? I can't remember.
I think he was the original one.
Oh, was there one before the Matt Damon one?
I could be wrong. It's not important. I just remember him from that. I remember him from a lot of things.
Yeah.
I mean, he's like your classic kind of uptight guy. Kind of a guy that seems too smart for everyone else. He's really good at projecting that. I don't know if that's what he's really like.
He plays good villains in really bad movies.
Yeah.
Like he was in Con Air. He was in that Rounders as like a
yeah, that's a good one.
He's just like a Russian gangster who plays poker. There was like a brilliant story from Matt Damon about that where like like they get on set and it's like his first day and like he does that Russian accent, which is terrible because it's like he did no prep whatever for that because he just kind of came in and did his shit and left.
Oh, he's just riffing it.
And like after like, you know, when he got done with the scene, like the fucking like the crew like clapped to him like, oh, what good. And he's like, and then Matt Damon just like was like, that sucked, right? That's terrible.
Yeah, he played Ripley in the 2002 Ripley's Game where he was the art forger
Oh, okay.
/ sociopath. I mean, I remember him from a lot of things, but yeah.
Yeah, he's like the preeminent character actor.
And then he was in
Was it Burn After Reading? Wasn't he in that?
Burn After Reading, Dangerous Liaisons, which was like a period piece from the 80s. What else was he in? I don't know. I remember a lot of things with him. He was in The Killing Fields. I did a great Of Mice and Men, probably the one that everyone knows. It's from the 90s. It's the one where it was Gary Sinise.
Huh. But
Line of Fire movie.
okay, yeah.
Army movie or something.
And then the other one I just caught randomly. Oh, shit, what should I talk about? Well, I saw The Bodyguard. It's another Netflix show.
Okay.
It's a British show starring Ned Stark.
Oh. Been killed yet?
I don't know. You have to watch the show.
Oh, okay.
It's a guy who's he's a former army guy who was in Afghanistan and has post-traumatic stress disorder, but is able to basically hide it. And he continues on to the police, where he's like armed police, and then ends up being on a guard detail for one of the secretaries of something.
Okay.
It's it's just a really well done show. It's very tense. It's very 24-esque.
Oh, okay.
Where like one guy like has to like suffer for all of freedom. It's pretty. I don't know. The first half's probably better than like the second half, because you don't know where everyone's allegiance lies. Like, where's this going? You don't know, and like a lot of shit happens. Like, oh fuck, what are they gonna do now? Like, this is gonna be a completely different TV show now. And then the second half, like it's like a lot more tense and plot, and it starts to like, uncover all the stuff. And then you watch it, it's like, that was really cool. And then you think about it, it's like, wait, no, that was stupid. But oh well. It's almost like the last half is like the first half is kind of like this tense kind of psychological thriller almost, with all these like elements of terrorism and like cool action scenes and shit like that. And the second half is almost like Speed, where it's like, does it make sense? Does it make sense to put a bomb on a bus where everyone has to drive, or the bus is gonna blow up? Like, no, but it's cool. So.
Oh, so she's the he's protecting the what's her name? The Home Secretary.
Yeah. And then she's trying to put forward a bill to basically have it so police can just basically like, read all your private information so they can figure out who's a terrorist or whatever.
Oh, yeah, they've been really trying to do that in England for years. We've heard about like the cynical reverse on because they have all kinds of problems in England now with it's all over the world, the immigration stuff they're having, where the people just try to take over. They'll put a bunch of immigrants in one part of like London, let's say, or somewhere else, and they just try to take over and say, well, you can't have bars here, you can't have, because that's against our religion or whatever. But see, they've had that problem since the 80s, but in the 80s they didn't have cameras everywhere. So you went up to the bar and tried to tell people, hey, you can't have a bar here. Well, the dock workers would just show up and beat the shit out of them. Didn't have the bar there, but now they got cameras everywhere. If the dock workers show up and beat the shit out of them, guess who gets arrested? The dock workers. So no one will say anything anymore or do anything because they got cameras all over the place. So now they're thinking, like, maybe these cameras are an invasion of privacy. Like, they're trying to work around. It's like, how can we make these problems solve themselves? But that's only the current government, which is, like, super cynical and I just think wants to die. Brexit apocalypse.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're throwing all kinds of stuff around. Like, how can we get out of Brexit and still keep people happy with the immigrant problem here? Oh, turn off all the cameras. Turn off all the cameras and adopt the American Second Amendment. And our problems just melt into the weeds. So.
Wait, who was Ned Stark? Was that?
Yeah, Ned was. That was Sean Bean. You're talking.
Okay, I'm talking
about the Red Wedding guy.
Yeah, Red Wedding Stark.
That's what I knew who you meant, but yeah.
I was like thinking about it. I was like, well, wait, no, that wasn't him. Like, it was like Ted Stark or something. And then, what's that?
The original King of the North.
Yeah. And then another show just happened. It's another Netflix show, co-production, this time in Australia. Which is like, it recommended to me. It's like, what's this? And it's called Pine Gap.
Is that about this reconnaissance station?
Yes.
It's actually about that. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Wow.
So there's like three, like, well, I don't know exactly what they do, like Echelon, satellite communications, all that shit. There's three, there's three of them in the world. Well, for America, there's three of them that are like American-run stuff. So there's one in Colorado, there's one in Yorkshire, England, and there's one in Pine Gap, Australia.
Okay.
Or actually, I can't remember the name of the town, but it's called Pine Gap because that's. And so it's a collaboration between Australian and the U.S., where it's just like does a lot of satellite communication and stuff like that. Show's interesting, but it's pretty boring. Because
Satellite procedural.
well, no, because they have to fake a lot of stuff because they don't know what actually goes on in that stuff. Because if they did, the show would probably be shut down for various reasons.
Bad ratings. We shut it down, and all the producers are in prison.
Because there's a part where there's like a rogue missile. It's like, we got a missile on here, and like they're monitoring all these different and then they have a video feed of the missile. Like there's a camera on there. It's like, how can you tap into the video feed on the missile? Like, what the fuck's going on here?
That's pretty sophisticated.
As it like hits a passenger plane, it's like, how can you tap into the video on the missile? It probably doesn't have a camera on it, but you can't control it. Like, how the fuck does that work?
Yeah, screw the camera. Let's try to shut this down.
But also it kind of reveals like this probably should be what the Jack Ryan show should be, where it's just like people in an office like trying to delineate information that they get.
Yeah, just a bunch of smart people.
Yeah, and then like all the action takes place on screen. You don't like cut to like where they are in the screen to get it down. And like, no, they just see the screen. Like all the action literally takes place on the screen. So it's almost like they're a spaceship.
Yeah.
But they never go outside. They never teleport to the to the ground to see what's going on. So it just becomes weirdly distant and boring because they don't do anything. It's like, oh yeah, this is why you throw Jack Ryan on the ground somewhere where he has to shoot somebody with a machine gun because it's more interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, because analysts don't really do that.
Yeah.
Which was always the funny thing in all the Jack Ryan universe. I'm just an analyst.
Yeah.
In the real world, you wouldn't be doing this. But because you have a special background.
But it's still some interesting show. So it ends up being less about the technical details and more about the interpersonal lives of working at Pine Gap. So it's more of a drama with this Pine Gap as being a backdrop. But that's kind of interesting itself, where it's like, you can't like have a relationship with anybody, or else they'll be like on a watch list, or they'll have to like submit or they have to be like vetted by a government agency. Like, we have to look into your personal history and your family's history. So like, relationships become tough. There's a weird, apparently the Americans and the Australians let them just take this land for Pine Gap.
Yeah.
And I guess it was like, Aborigines like kind of sacred ground or something, and they just took it. Yeah. Well, actually, I think it said there was like a star, like, which makes sense because it's a satellite communication and all kinds of communication area. That it was like in the ancient times, like people would go there to see the stars, because I guess it's just a big open area to see the stars. So I guess that makes sense.
Oh, okay.
And then like there's like kind of a side thing about a Chinese company that they're gonna like give a bunch of money to these Aborigines, so they can like mine on their land. But you like no, like, oh, this is just gonna be like, this isn't just some, this is gonna spy shit. Yeah, they're just building a mine to like tap into Pine Gap. They haven't followed through on that yet, but I'm pretty sure that's where they're going, because I've only seen like 4 episodes.
Okay.
I also like that they criticize Chinese in this show, like, because like a lot of shows are like co-financed by China, so like either China's not mentioned or it's like never like like spying. China doesn't spy on people and do awful things.
It's always the Russians or
the North Koreans.
Yeah, the North Koreans and their sophisticated network.
And then there's like some interesting stuff where they have between Australian and United States government. I mean, they make their own fictionalized version of them, so like, it's like President Kerr is like United States president, and there's all stuff around that.
Oh, okay.
But this links into like a trailer I was watching about a combat simulator for the F-14 Tomcat. So in the show, that missile I was talking about, they call it a vampire missile.
Okay.
And then like, but it's not. It's like it's like what is a and like also in that trailer for the F-14, there's a part at the end where it's just like vampire, like and they're talking about a missile. I was like, what's a vampire missile? And it's like, so in the show, I'm not sure if they intentionally like a vampire missile isn't a real thing.
No, it's actually it's like a code for a cruise missile, I think.
Well, the thing I read is that I mean I don't know, but it's like any incoming missile about to hit a ship. That's the that's basically like brace for impact is like vampire missile inbound.
Whizzes start going off.
Yeah.
At least that's what I learned from the last ship. Because he will always knock down a missile. I still like the insane scene in that movie where they figure out that the Russian nuclear battleship that was chasing them, they were trying to go to France to refuel because everyone in the world was dead. They fucking nuked France, like they just nuked the port. One guy watching the radar was like, "That's a supersonic Russian missile. That's a nuclear weapon." And they immediately they try to close the shutters and stuff, and this huge nuclear bomb goes off. It's like, yep, that's what it was, because it was flying at like Mach 5 or something. Like, that's a nuclear cruise missile. Yeah, the Australians are. It's funny you mentioned that about the Australians and the Chinese. The Australians are very outspoken about how bad the Chinese are. They have no inhibitions about saying, yeah, if we were a bigger country, we'd have a fucking American Navy because we don't trust the Chinese that much. Because they get all the shit over there. They see what happens there.
Well, that's I guess one of the interesting dynamics they play in the show is the idea that China is going to offer like some sort of neutrality treaty with Australia.
Yeah.
If they back off of it, like they don't accept like American funding or whatever like that, then like China will replace it. But like a war happens between China and America, like Australia agrees not to to be neutral about it.
Oh, okay. I could see that.
So that's an interesting take I haven't seen before.
Yeah. It's it's possible. It's a possible scenario. And if you again, the Chinese become supermen like the Russians were during the Cold War, the Soviets, the supermen, they're going to outmaneuver us in every way except being able to fucking feed their own people. They're going to kick our ass.
That's what the CIA says. Just going to increase birth rates in China. It's like it'll collapse after this.
Have you heard about the weird population curve that's going to happen in China in about 10 years?
What's that?
Well, see, they had that one-child policy for so long.
Yeah.
And then they got rid of it. Well, because everyone was aborting all their girls, now they have just a lot of horny men roaming around China looking for the last fertile woman. But they've done away with the one-child policy, so now people are having families again. They're not having the giant ones, but they're having 1 or 2 kids. But those are mostly younger people. People like kind of in our age bracket, like me and you are like 10 years apart. It's like half of them aren't married and never will be. And then you've got a bunch of old people there that are getting ready to die. So China's population curve is going to go like this. It's going to, and no society has ever done that except during like plagues and stuff. Like that's never happened before. So everyone's curious, but they're just going to take over Japan because the Japanese population is now dropping so rapidly that they can't. Because I forget what the population is going to be. They're going to lose 35 million people in like the next 15 years or something in Japan.
Huh.
People are just going to die off. And there've been no one has children there. People are too nervous to have sex. I don't know what living in Japan is like, but it seems pretty intense sometimes. Pretty intense group.
But yeah, watching that DCS F-14 Tomcat trailer just made me like, man, there's not really a good like World War II scale conventional modern warfare movie.
Oh yeah,
like that part, like in the trailer, you see like fucking like like 15 Tomcats and you see all like the trails of the plane, and then they all fire missiles at the same time, and then there's like trails of the missiles. Like, that's cinematically amazing, and we'll never see it.
If you ever see that in real life, you're gonna see mushroom clouds.
Well, that's why I say, like, have it all be conventional. Like, for some reason they're like negating nuclear warfare, but we're going to deploy all this modern military stuff in mass, like navies versus navies and comparable air forces versus air forces and all that stuff.
Yeah,
because that's what I mean. Even though, well, I was going to say like the Joe Buff books, but even that's all about like you can't even if you mount to an army that large, it just gets nuked. So
yeah.
So it's all about secrecy and submarines and stuff. But
yeah, that was yeah, because you could only use nuclear weapons at sea.
oh, is that the okay?
Yeah, because that's how we massed that army in South Africa. After we conquered South Africa in those books, we started massing the army there. We'd send them over in planes because you didn't want to send them over in a large group because they just nuked the supply chain.
Yeah.
They just took over South Africa and co-opted them and took over their industry, and then they were raising a giant African army with our guys, but with South African equipment to fight through Europe. And then the British were helping us too, because they were kind of like in the position they were in World War II, where they were isolated. But yeah, that was those. I mean, Red Storm Rising is that kind of stuff has never been cinematically done, where you didn't have you just like, what happened if we used all the weapons of the Cold War except nuclear weapons?
Yeah.
Nowadays it would, oh my god, the cost of that would be ungodly. What was it? A B-17 bomber. I think it was $250,000 a bomber, and that was just one of the many B model bombers we had. That was the Fortress, though, and I think in today's money it would be like $3 million, $4 million. But they made like thousands and thousands of those things. It's like the most effective bomber we have now is maybe the B-1. I don't know, Stratofortress carries more, and those are really old. But yeah, I couldn't imagine like hundreds of those. The thing with the missile wars we have now is missiles are great, but some of them are like $1 million a crack. Like you're spending a lot of money. Now you're getting, whatever you're shooting at, you're destroying. You're not having to saturate the area. But yeah, that's what the Chinese, a lot of their naval power is anti-aircraft carrier technology. And by that I mean they have like a missile called the Hung Sang 3 now, or what. They say they're going to build like 10,000 of them. So if it ever comes to a showdown with America, they just go after our aircraft carriers. They saturate them with missiles. Like we couldn't possibly shoot them all down. So yeah, that's. But those missile wars, they'll bankrupt you in a hurry because they're expensive as shit. I mean, the German missiles, those V2 missile rockets, were expensive. It was an expensive weapon, and it wasn't entirely effective. It just degraded the psychology of your enemy. Especially the V1s, the buzz bombs. It's like, oh, the engine stopped. Now it's coming towards us. V2s, you had no warning. It was supersonic. You didn't know until it hit. But that would still degrade your psychology. But yeah, wars of the future are gonna. Because what are the British? The British are looking at fielding drone bombers now. Because the British have no intermediate or long-range bombing capability anymore. They said they're going to introduce the drone, the BAE Systems. They had a big rollout this December. You ever seen that terrible movie? What was the movie where the aliens invaded? And it kind of reminded me of like the Fall of Man.
What, Battle Los Angeles?
No, the other one, the really silly one where it was like the blue aliens and it was designed. Was
that the other LA invasion movie?
The brothers that were like.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Okay, they remember they had the drone stealth bomber in that hit the alien ship with a nuclear missile.
Yeah.
It was a really small and it was maneuverable and it had that weird triangle in the front of it that was its camera and everything. That's exactly what the British aerospace rolled out. It's going to be their drone stealth bomber. It looks like a mini B-2 bomber. So that was.
Well, yeah, because of like drone planes like that, you don't have to build for the consideration of keeping a pilot alive, so that they can fly faster and turn harder.
Yep. Yeah, the computer doesn't black out. But those are all susceptible to things too.
Yeah, yeah.
That's the problem. It's terrible to send 500 bombers sailing over the horizon at your enemy just to have them turn right around and sail back at you. It's fucked ourselves.
Then the other Netflix venture I watched was Bandersnatch.
Was that the thing?
That's the Dark Mirror movie.
Choose Your Own Adventure thing?
Yep, Choose Your Own Adventure. So it is a Choose Your Own Adventure movie where you select scenarios and where to get off, where you want the character to go.
How'd that work out? I haven't.
It's very clever. It's not the future of movies.
Okay. They didn't revolutionize anything. They just introduced a gimmick.
Yeah. Well, like they've only like advertised this movie, but there's actually like fucking 20 different things that do this on Netflix currently.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Because there's a a very large studio that recently went under called Telltale Studios.
Okay.
And they made like the Walking Dead adventure games.
Oh yeah, my son likes those.
So they made a game called Minecraft Story Mode, whereas another kind of adventure game, and which the male voice is Patton Oswalt in that game. And so one of the things they worked on, or at least like as they were firing everybody, like one of the last teams that held on was like the team that did this stuff for Netflix. I think they were hoping Netflix would buy more of their shit, and then the money didn't come through, and they fired everybody and dissolved the company.
Oh, okay.
And so they took the game, they converted it basically into a movie where like there's branching paths and stuff like that in story, and so you can play the whole season of that game on Netflix. If you have like, you can only play them on smart TVs and computers. Like I don't think you can do it on your phone, or I couldn't do it on my tablet. And for some reason, like some things, like I think some Roku's or Apple TVs won't play it, but you can do it on your computer.
Mine's pretty old.
You can do it on any computer though.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just really interesting. Like there's stuff comes up where like, what music is the character going to listen to? And he's like holding two things, and it was like the Thompson Twins, or Now That's What I Call Music 2. It takes place in 1984 in Britain.
Okay.
And it's about a guy making a video game called Bandersnatch, which is based on a choose your own adventure novel within the fiction of that.
Oh, okay.
And then it starts the Dark Mirror thing of, technology, or the whole thing's about free will, and because you're choosing for him, that's what the story becomes about. It's like, and like it starts to be like, I don't, he's like, he starts to like, there's even like some choices you make where he doesn't do it, like he's like forcing himself. It's like somebody's forcing me to do things. And like I think you can like, there's a lot of endpoints. And then like the way they catch you back up, there'll be one where like here's divergent paths, and you can kind of like go back and pick to go back in one path, or you can go on the other one and figure out like what happens there. And they do a really good of like kind of like catching you up, or like they'll like do like a 20-second like here's what's happened so far. Here's the choices you made, and it's like so I think it can be like almost like an hour and a half movie, but apparently if you see everything that they shot or that's available in the hopper for all the different video and branches, it's like a 5.5 hour movie to see everything and all its variances.
Oh, okay.
But it doesn't really take that long to watch it.
Yeah.
But yeah, almost every ending is just a bleak, hopeless ending. The funnest one is the Netflix ending.
Oh, okay.
Because it's 1984, at one point there's like you start talking to the character like through the computer, and like one of the selections is like who's watching me or something like that, and like you can select Netflix, and then like a thing will pop up on the screen he's looking at. It's like, you're on Netflix, and he's like, what's Netflix? And you have to like sit there like explain to him what Netflix is.
Oh yeah, yeah, because that wouldn't make any sense to anyone from 1984.
It's like, it's a streaming service online. It's like, that doesn't mean anything to me.
What's a line? You mean like a phone line?
And then he goes to his therapist, and she's like, if you were like a television show, like, wouldn't your life be more interesting? And
Yeah.
and he's like, and it's like, wouldn't there be a bunch of action and stuff like that if this were a television show? And then like the selection is like either yes or fuck yeah. So you select fuck yeah, and it just turns into like a giant like ninja fight between the therapist and like the guy's dad comes in, and like he's dragged away. He's like, I know who you are. I know you. That's the funnest ending of the.
Oh. That's ridiculous, but fun.
Yeah.
Sounds like they had some fun this time.
Yeah, it's I'd say try it out. It's like I said, it's not the future of movies, but it's a fun thing.
Oh, by the way, Bird Box, Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross did the soundtrack for that.
Yeah.
I know that's your thing.
Yeah, they did like some. They also did like some movie called mid '90s. They did music for that too. They did like soundtrack for like 3 different movies this year, as well as like touring and releasing Bad Witch.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I haven't. But I don't think I like necessarily recognize I don't remember any music from Bird Box, but like sometimes they do kind of very low key, atmospheric stuff. So I'd have to like listen to it.
If you
later.
watch the after the credits, that was like you could really tell, because when I heard it, because it had that synthesizer, that like driving synthesizer, like I was like, it sounds like 9 Inch Nails, and then I just watched the credits. I was like, yep, that's who it was. It makes sense now.
And I saw The Predator.
Which one is that?
That's the latest Predator movie.
Oh, what'd you think of that?
Man,
Because I know Andrew really.
Andrew really liked it. I did not.
I didn't hear good things about it. I didn't bother.
It's not like it's classically a bad movie. Like it's not like, oh, here's a bunch of bad decisions. It's like it's 4 different movies in one.
Oh, okay.
It's like trying to be The Arrival, a Predator movie, Stranger Things, Dirty Dozen, like all in a fucking Predator movie.
Oh, that's weird.
Yes, it is exceptionally weird.
Doesn't sound like it gelled very well either.
I mean, there's actually like character stuff that was surprisingly like, okay, that works, because like there's stuff, because like the people the main guy ends up hooking up with is a bunch of people in a mental health facility. Like they're all all military guys in a mental health facility, and then that group ends up like coming together to stop the Predator. There's also like the first Predator that shows up. He's a good Predator. He's like the hippie whistleblowing Predator that's trying to save Earth, but still kills a bunch of humans in the process.
Yeah, well, he has to work that into it because that's kind of what he is. But yeah.
And then that Predator is getting chased by another Predator that's like even taller. It's like a 10-foot tall Predator that's incorporated human DNA into it.
Okay.
Because now the one thing they added to the Predator fiction is that the Predators don't just like take skulls as trophy. They take the spines too for DNA to incorporate into their own bodies to like make better Predators.
Okay.
So that was kind of an interesting addition to the I guess the mythos of the Predator. So the weird thing about Predator is like nothing carries forward from any movie. Like every Predator movie is isolated.
Okay.
And so it was kind of interesting that they tried to bring things together for this movie, but it's just It's just
This
very...
movie kind of has a weird cast because isn't like Olivia Munn and one of the Key and Peele guys?
Yeah.
in it? Okay. Yeah.
But she's like really annoying at first, but then there's like Thomas Jane is in it in a bit part. Well, I guess not a bit part. He's one of the loonies. That's what they call him. And he has Tourette's syndrome.
So if being he's doing this at the same time as The Expanse, is he still in his anorexic mode?
Not really.
Thomas Jane always looked vaguely anorexic.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, that like they have like an interesting character. Him and Key have an interesting relationship where it's like he lit up, like accidentally like lit up one of his friendly fire incident, and so Thomas Jane was like inside the vehicle he lit up, and he was the one survivor, and so they have like a strange relationship where they're like friends because they had to spend all this time doing like court hearings and stuff to figure out like, who's at fault and things like that. They spent all this time together that they became friends, but also became, mentally ill at the same time.
Oh, okay.
So that was interesting. That's like better than I thought they would do with that kind of subject matter. There's also an autistic kid that ends up being, the best at fighting the predator, or at least technology wise. Like he figures out all the predator shit when nobody else does. And then like, they try to, it's almost feel like it weirdly inclusive. It's like, oh, autistic kids are like, they actually say like they're the next line in evolution of human beings.
Oh, okay.
So it's like weirdly inclusive, which you wouldn't expect it, but the fucking movie's a mess. So. Slightly, I don't know. It's still somewhat entertaining, but it's just kind of a mess, and it just feels like a farce of the whole Predator franchise.
Yeah.
Because there's like a moment where like they're escaping one of the military institutions, and they like park the bus, and like they like point at a bar, and there's a bunch of motorcycles parked out front, and the guy goes, "Get to the choppers." I was like, "Fuck you."
Okay.
It's like funny and dumb and it's all at the same time.
Okay.
And then apparently the test audiences didn't like the ending, so they reshot the ending. So yeah, the ending doesn't feel right. Although the original ending, I'm not sure if it would feel better, but it was kind of interesting because like apparently Edward James Olmos was in the original ending, and they had like friendly predators that were like on like manning 50 cows on top of Humvees and like fighting the other predator.
Okay.
And that was like the big reveal at the end was like, oh, we have friendly predators with us and they're going to help us fight. But then I guess they had to like reshoot the whole like last third of the movie. So that's why it kind of doesn't really fit that well. So yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure what Andrew necessarily saw in that movie. Although he did award it his biggest surprise, which I don't know. I guess he had really low expectations for that movie.
Yeah, I was gonna say, considering like the last 5 movies that had a predator in them were just like terrible, like Alien versus Predator 6.
There's only 2 of those, but
It seemed like there was 30 of them. But
and there's the Predators movie, which was interesting, but also kind of had its shortcomings. But
it was one with Adrian Brody, right? Where
yeah.
Planet.
Yep.
Yeah.
Which that one's like more visually interesting, but also just weird story.
Yeah, it was shot straight. It was kind of a combination of like, what would you say, like Pitch Black and The Predator.
Yeah.
Like we got these people with horrible pasts, and they're gonna have to atone for their sins. And yeah, I think I watched that. I did watch that. It was a while.
So yeah, The Predator. I don't catch it when it's on like HBO or some shit.
Yeah.
It's worth a go through, but not.
Yeah, don't like.
Well, I'd be really interested to see if what kind of like DVD that extras like that thing would have. Like if they like, here's the original cut. That'd be interesting. I doubt they'd do it, or all the stories behind it, because they spent like $88 million on it. And I don't think it made that back. So not gonna get a extension of the Predator franchise once again.
I made $200 million.
Oh, it did. Okay, well, maybe they'll make.
That's global or
That might be global. I know it was like #1 at the box office when it came out, but I think it only made like 20 million like opening weekend.
yeah.
But yeah, the ending's really the ending they have, like the very ending, like the sort of like, hey, next time. It's like, it's really stupid. Where it's like this, they find something predator thing, and it hooks onto this guy, and it turns into like basically a an anime predator suit for humans that has like 500 floating guns on it.
Okay.
And it's like, that was what the predators gave us to fight the predators. It's like, well, I guess that's like a cool toy, but that's a really it's just at the end it just suddenly turns into like it's going to be a Marvel movie or some shit. It's like, I don't think that's where the Predator series needs to go, but
Yeah. Let's see. What did I hear about? Oh, Arnold Schwarzenegger was in Michigan. Campaigning for something. He's doing political stuff, and they're going to shoot some scenes from, or they have shot some scenes here from Terminator 6.
Oh, okay.
So they were shooting something here, probably in Detroit, because they're a post-apocalyptic wasteland.
Yeah, yeah.
It's built in. So that's I like how that's like we're going to reboot a reboot of a reboot.
Well, that actually has
The
the
after Terminator 2, and they're
yeah.
throwing out other shit.
Yep. I mean, that's the right move. Well, also, James Cameron is a producer on it, so he's involved. So, doesn't guarantee anything, but it's a better step foot forward than what they've been doing. Although I didn't hate Salvation and I didn't hate Genesis, but Genesis was also just pretty stupid, but it had a lot of nostalgia attached to it that was kind of interesting. But I liked it better than 3.
I remember not liking Genesis and then watching it a few times, and then like, oh, okay, maybe I don't hate this as much as the first time through. I didn't like it at all.
Yeah.
But I like the story with the cop, and Jay Courtney's an interesting actor.
Yeah, I think only the John Connor stuff was where it got really stupid.
Yeah.
But some of the other stuff was all right. I mean, like, I don't know, none of the cast in that movie was great, but
No, because they had Doctor Who in it.
yeah.
Speaking of Doctor Who, somebody had a funeral for that franchise. They had a funny, I forget, I was listening to something on a podcast, and they were like, well, this was the year that your favorite sci-fi franchises died, and they said Star Wars, 1977, 2018, and then they had Star Trek, of course, because everyone seems to hate the new season of Discovery, even though it's not out yet.
Yeah.
Which is, I don't know. I watched the last one as someone who's not willing to pay for another pay service that just read the scripts online and kind of put it together that way, which it seemed interesting, but I didn't bother to see it, so I don't have a comment on that. And the new Doctor Who, of course, it's like, well, this is the end of Doctor Who. It's like, no, it isn't. It'll be back. It always comes back. I think if mankind collapsed and we lost all our technical civilization, they'd be putting on Doctor Who. I think it'll never end.
Sock puppet Doctor Who.
Punch and Judy Doctor Who.
Oh, we got the Orville season 2 coming out. And that's if you want Star Trek, go to the Orville because that's where it is.
Your Next Generation / Deep Space Nine fix. He was just on Mark Maron's podcast.
Yeah, I didn't listen to that one yet, but
it's kind of. I mean, he's a quirky guy. Sometimes I like Seth MacFarlane's entertainment, and sometimes I really don't.
Yeah.
Because there's some stuff he does where people are like, this is so. It's like the one with the talking bear. This isn't funny. I didn't like this on any level. But then that horrible Western he did, I found parts of that like engaging and funny.
Yeah.
It's like, why do I like this and not that? And the Orville, I've watched half of season 1, and then for some reason my on-demand fucked around. I don't know. I'm getting all new equipment next weekend. So
Okay.
we'll see how fucked up the podcast is. For some reason I'm getting shows I shouldn't, and my all our computers are disconnecting, and they're like, oh, it's probably your box is bad. It's like, oh, the one I got 2 years ago is bad already. Okay.
We changed services over. And
We need money.
give us money. We don't do shit.
Because you had a bandwidth cap and now you don't, because you called and screamed at the Indian call center. And because you're a premium customer, you shouldn't have a bandwidth cap. Basically, because you're not downloading pirated movies. It's like, no, I'm not. I'm just fucking watching TV. But yeah, that's so we'll see. Maybe I can catch up on, or not. I don't know. I'm doing things. I'm busy. Sometimes I can't watch TV all day. I'm building. We had our second meeting of the official model club group, and there was like 35 people there, which surprised me.
Huh.
There's a lot of people there, and met some cool guys, and we talked about some things. And we decided as a group to we're all going to build our interpretation of a Stuka dive bomber. So the store, John's store, the Model Cave, he made these available to us for $10 a piece, and so everyone bought one.
All right, show me that again. Oh, sorry.
It's just
Okay.
this is an interesting model because parts aren't on sprues and risers. They all come in little bags, and you screw the model together for the main structures of it. There's like just metal screws. You screw it together. And so I've never done a World War. No, I've never really done a World War II thing to completion. I've started them. So this is going to be my first Stuka. So at the beginning of the meeting in March, we're all supposed to have our homework done. And considering how good some of those guys are in there, I'm gonna just feel really dumb showing up with mine because it's like, oh, well, but this is what I did. Because my son was like, Dad, don't put sci-fi shit on it or make it steampunk. It's like no one's gonna appreciate that. It's like, well, I gotta work in my genre. It's like, no, you're just being lazy. Just do it the way people do it.
What, they specifically want different interpretations of the same plane, or?
No, I mean, no. Well, I mean, it's.
Or they want just variants on the same plane.
I just want to see what everyone likes. You know, what their skill level is, what their version of it would be. So there's some of those guys that are just like crazy. Like you see their work, and it's like, how did you even see that? How did you even do that? You know, some of the paint schemes and the details is just like, oh my god. But some of these guys have been doing this for 30 years, and they like, you know, win prizes and stuff. So. And then there's a lot more people like me that are just having fun. I'm not going to compete with people that are champions at this because they don't have the time or the money or the talent. So that's what I'm going to be working on for a while. Which that was kind of a fun group project. Like I said, I haven't done a lot in the World War II genre, so. See, the thing about that is it's like fertile ground. And there's also a lot of rivet counting too. So you gotta, you know, because you can find out like what was the, you know, what did the cockpit look like? What color were the gauges? Like all that information is available.
Yeah.
What color variation did this plane use in 1943 in Austria? You know, and it's available. Like there it is. You can do it. But like a lot of the stuff I do, like when I'm putting an anti-aircraft gun on the back of a semi truck, like there's not a lot of like you know involved there. Or when I take a 57 Chevy model and put like monster truck tires on it and you know machine guns, it's like there's no schematic. This is no palette except for Mad Max. Then one guy was asking me, so have you, because I brought some of my models in, and he says, yeah, that looks like something from Mad Max. I said, yeah, I do a lot of that. And he goes, have you ever made the original, the real car? And I said, it's hard to find the parts for it. I mean, you can go hundreds of dollars deep and buy stuff online, but I said, I'm not I'm not in love. If I'm going to build a model that costs $400 or $500, I'm going to build something like the Millennium Falcon. It is what it is. It is Bandai made that. It is actually worth that money. I'm not going to spend $500 chasing resin guys around. Kind of make something that looks like the, you know, if Ertl or one of the major companies came out with a Mad Max Interceptor and it was all one kit, absolutely I would build it. But I'm not going to be one of those guys. I'm not going to be this purist that's like, well, they haven't made that kit since the 80s. And it's $500 on eBay. And it really goes together like shit because it's 80s technology and it's not, you know. No, I don't want to do that. There are financial limits to, well, it's not, even if money wasn't an object, it just wouldn't be satisfying to me to do that. Like I said, if Bandai or somebody wants to come out with a kit, it's like the V8 Interceptor from, you know, it's a 1971 Ford XB Falcon. You know, if you want to do that, I'll build it. But if I got to go like buy custom parts and you're dependent on me to cut things out and with a razor and glue them back together, it's like, I'm not going to be happy to do it. Some people will. I'm just not one of those people.
Or you just make the Mad Max, you know, one car.
Yeah.
It's just the Interceptor before the end of civilization.
Yeah, just the regular. Well, that's my favorite one, actually.
Oh, okay. Well, then, yeah, you can just do that. You can just find a Falcon model, right?
I don't know if they make those. Tell me about Man Seeking Woman while I look that up.
Man Seeking Woman was a show on FX. It's based on a book. It's a very crazy show where like monsters and stuff will show. There's one episode where like it's like his former girlfriend was dating just basically a penis monster from Japan.
Yeah.
And like they blur out all the penises and like he's trying to have conversations while just semen is flying everywhere.
Jesus. Sounds bizarre.
Yeah, and I think one of the posters, it's like he's literally dates a troll, and it's like, you know, in the show it's actual troll. It's like the show has no really internal consistency. It's very Looney Tunes-esque.
It's just one show to the next.
Yeah, and just how it's portraying what dating is like in a really absurd manner. I can't remember the guy who did it. He's like doing something currently, but he kind of like, he wrote this novel, and now he's like making TV shows and shit. Yeah, and Eric Andre's in it. So, and Jay Baruchel, Canadian's own Jay Baruchel.
Oh, okay.
Simon Rich, that's who wrote the book. What's he doing now? Well, Willy Wonka. He's making a Willy Wonka movie.
Weird. Have you ever seen that funny video where they say Snowpiercer was the logical next step of Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory?
No.
It's like this is what happened to Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory and Snowpiercer.
Yeah, that makes some sort of sense. Yeah, Simon Rich, his next show is Miracle Workers, and that's that TBS show that Andrew was talking about, where it's Steve Buscemi plays God.
Okay, I remember.
And Harry Potter and a couple other people have to keep God from destroying the earth because he's just like a manic depressive who doesn't want to listen to anybody.
Fight against a sad God.
So yeah, Simon Rich, he seems to make a lot of absurd stuff. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if you're gonna find out. Yeah, it might be on your cable box or something. But yeah, usually the easiest way to access FX stuff is to either subscribe to their online service, which is terrible, or they usually have it on Hulu. But if you have Hulu,
yeah, I don't. I have Prime, and that's it. Because I like watching 6-year-old movies and getting my stuff in 2 days.
Wait, what's your recent watch history on Prime?
I don't know. Let me check. But probably like weird British police procedurals.
Okay.
I end up with I got Trans-Siberian. I'm about to watch that one.
Is that the one with the Dennis Quaid?
No. Oh, maybe. Woody Harrelson, Kate Mara, and are the main guys, and then it has the
Okay, I'm thinking about something else.
Kingsley. Let's see, what else did I watch? What's Nathan watching on Prime? I don't know. I mean, I watch a lot of Star Trek on there.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like the series. Oh, Castles in the Sky was the last, and interestingly, a BBC thing starring Eddie Izzard.
Okay.
Guys who invented radar.
Huh. That's
It's
interesting.
actually, it's cool. I mean, it's a BBC like 90-minute documentary, I think.
Okay.
Or not documentary. It's a docudrama, but more drama.
Okay.
So it's kind of quick, but it's compelling and sad. Like everything in Britain, it's kind of rainy and sad. And there's a lot of class warfare because that's what Britain spins around back then. Let's see what else did I? Oh, of course, I reviewed The Fourth Kind because for some reason I like that stupid movie. I just like it. Night Eats World, which is a French movie with an American star, and it's about zombies and a guy who lives in an apartment.
Well, we watched a movie.
Yes, we watched the 1999 David Cronenberg classic, Existence, which is it's a play on the word existence and existentialism.
Yeah, something like. I heard something like. I was reading some trivia and it's saying that like this was financially backed by like some Hungarian outfit, and so like that X and the Z in existence, like that's like an abbreviation for some Hungarian word that means something.
Okay, good.
And there's like all that. It's like, and there's shit like that throughout the entire movie.
This movie has a very Eastern European vibe to it in some parts.
Yeah. This is the one of I guess there's just two movies. There was the two other Matrix-like movies that weren't the Matrix, so nobody was gonna watch them because they're not the Matrix, and this was one. This is the better. Well, this is the weirder one.
Yes, this is the more because what was the other one? The
13th Floor.
13th Floor. Okay.
Which we probably won't watch, but we might watch it. It's like 13th Floor was like an okay movie, but it came out at the same time as The Matrix, so it's like, why would you watch 13th Floor? There's not somebody doing kicks off the wall with two submachine guns in that fucking movie.
Yeah. What was the other one that came out?
Oh, was there another one?
No, it wasn't a 99 film. It was
Oh.
a weird Christian Bale where no one had emotions. Or they were supposed
Oh,
to.
Equilibrium?
Yeah, but that was later than 99.
Yeah. Well, I mean, these are like Existence and 13th Floor are both like humans in a computer simulation world, and they don't know that they're in it. That's why it's specifically. And like those all came out in 99. Like 3 movies with the same concept came out in 99.
Yes.
But only one is The Matrix.
Yeah, there's only one. There's only one Matrix. Yeah, this movie was. I hadn't watched it in a while, and because when this came out, of course, I was deep in the throes of I need to work 90 hours a week. A lot of movies in '99, except The Matrix, I didn't see. So I remember watching this.
Yeah, I think I saw this on cable,
Yeah,
so that's where I caught it.
and I forgot like I mean, I knew this movie had like it's Cronenberg. It's kind of what do we say? It was a spiritual successor to
Videodrome.
Videodrome, and it was, but I forgot like just all the sex in this movie. Windows, and just I mean, okay, let's just start with what's going on here. Let's set up the story. So we have at some point, this isn't like the future, like flying cars.
No, but they seem to have future-esque technology.
Yeah, they seem to have. Well, in the beginning, so if you start at the beginning, because there's some plot twists, but it's like a bunch of people sitting in a church, and
They're going to review a new game that the Jennifer Jason Leigh had created, and she's like a guru game developer. And she created a new game called Existence. And
Yes.
And everybody has to like jack into Existence using this weird flesh mound thing.
yeah, everything. Okay, so to play this game, you have a
Bioport.
bioport, which looks like a second butthole. You're backed by a jackhammer. Well, at least we see that in one scene. And then you have to hook it up to and everything, all the technology in this part of this beginning of this, it all looks like stuff you buy in a sex shop. It's like the little pods that connect you to this world. They look like tits, and you play with their nipples, and then you hook up to them, and yeah, and this umbilical cord goes into your second butthole, back. And it's, very sexual, kind of slimy plastic type stuff.
Yeah.
Which Cronenberg,
But Cronenberg body horror. That's his thing.
Yes. Yeah, and this is, but this is virtual reality.
Yeah.
Because people were obsessed with that in the 90s. It still hasn't reached any kind of potential yet. It's a lot closer than it was, but
It's cool, but it's not in the way every writer takes away virtual reality. It's like, as soon as you put the helmet on, like your entire consciousness is transferred into the video game, rather than what it is, where it's like, here's two screens in front of your eyes that project in a 3D manner.
well, one thing I liked about this movie, I guess, was it kind of skipped all the futury shit, at least initially, by saying this is like an organic technology.
Yeah.
It's so that like, oh, I could actually see that like taking over your nervous system and working in your brain, other than just putting a helmet on and all of a sudden you just take flight, which we know doesn't happen. You have to turn off all your senses, interrogate that world using your brain directly, which we don't know how to do as far as I know. Or if we do, it'll just give you a tumor or something.
But yeah, when everybody in the test group tries to jack into Existence, that's when like some guy pulls out does he just have a machine gun, a submachine gun or something, and shoots everybody out?
One of those weird biological.
Oh, he's got the flesh gun that shoots the teeth. That's right.
Right.
Because there's also a weird thing with like mutant fish and amphibians.
Yes.
Because of I can't remember if like pollution's changing amphibian. Oh no, they're use it to make the games. They have to like alter the DNA of amphibians to like create all this stuff.
Yes, all this biotech is created by mutant fish that are just tortured and torn apart and put back together to make all this stuff happen. Which is just kind of just gross out weird stuff that happens throughout the movie.
Reminds me of that blue blood they extract from crabs, from horseshoe crabs.
Yeah. Yeah, it was weird. It's weird looking stuff. And then you have this the counter group, which doesn't want any of this virtual reality. They're called the realists, interestingly. Humorous. And then, so we got Jennifer Jason Leigh and Jude Law and Bilbo Baggins. Also
yeah.
Holm, and Willem Dafoe.
And kind of a bit part.
Yeah, a weird bit part. And I remember I watched this movie because we were going to do it last week, but at 3.5 hours we kind of hit that hard out one. And we didn't get to talk about it. But I remember I thought like the performances in this were real wooden and weird. And then I rewatched the movie and they were like, oh yeah, but they're a person playing a person.
Yeah.
Like game characters, like when he puts his tongue in her back butt, her second butthole. She's like, what the hell are you doing? He's like, I didn't do that. That wasn't me. That was like the person he was supposed to be playing. And so there's kind of this weird push and pull between, because I thought all the acting.
Well, they explain things away because that in that part, they're in like a second virtual reality. I guess what you would know is the first virtual reality.
Yeah. I think first virtual reality. Yes, it becomes very what's that movie called?
Inception.
This becomes very Inception-y, but not in this cool way.
Because they're saying like once you're in the video game, there's kind of like scripting that needs to happen, so you can interact with everything, but at some point, like you have to do something, and the other characters have to do something in order to progress. Because there's like that one guy, he's just like looping dialogue, and like until he has to say the right thing to move on to the next thing. So it's kind of like eradicating free will and stuff like that because a video game has to play out.
Right. Oh, and Christopher Eccleston was in this.
Oh yeah.
Christopher Eccleston was in this. So yeah, that's after understanding that, which I apparently missed. I mean, I knew there were certain goals they had to meet and things they had to do, but I thought the acting was weird. And then
it really was. But yeah, I guess I didn't even think about it because even I thought it was like it wasn't that well acted or whatever at some point, or at least like Jennifer Jason Leigh was just weird throughout, but she's also that's what she does.
Yeah, she's always kind of weird. But Jude Law seemed very wooden in parts and then very engaged in other parts. And the reason, because what I thought about was the Willem Dafoe scene, the bit part, seemed, it's like, wow, he is really, I know this guy's a good actor. This is really a weird performance. But then it's like, oh, he's being deceptive and also playing a character.
Yeah.
Within a character, so. His name, of course, is Gas. He installs the black market bioport, the sub game, which is weird. Like I said, it just puts it in with like a framing hammer. It's like that's how you put it in.
But yeah, somehow the game gets infected, and that's why they have to like go into the game. They're trying to fix it.
Yeah,
and they need to go in together to try to fix it. So that's why they're going into Existence.
Yeah, and it's there were some other things I picked up on that just seemed.
And then one of my favorite scenes is when they go to the restaurant and order the special, and it's all the weird amphibian stuff. And he's like, it's like his character has to eat the stuff, so he's like reluctant to eating it, and he's like, oh, it looks terrible, but it's not as bad as it looks. And then he starts constructing the flesh gun with the teeth bullets and air bladders and shit like that.
Yeah. Waiter, I found this in my soup or something. They have some weird statement like that before he shoots the guy in the face.
Yeah.
And then everyone reacts, and then they don't.
Yeah, they just continue on their loop. He shoots the Chinese waiter, which will be important at the very end of the movie.
Comes up again, and then he yells out that the game is paused, and his head sinks into the table.
Yeah.
I wish I could do that in real life. So, and then the story moves on, and Ian Holmes gets killed, and the weird Russian guy, they find out that some of their game pods are diseased, and then he comes in, or the Russian guy comes in and flamethrowers it, and then black bugs go everywhere. and then they end up, like all the roles change. It's like Jude Law was really the person who was supposed to assassinate Jennifer Jason Leigh, and then because they find the resistance, and then she double crosses him and kills him, and then we emerge in the real world.
All right, let's not forget the part when they go into Existence and they put like the miniature controllers inside their ports.
Oh yeah, the things to disinfect them or whatever.
Well, no, because like it's like inside Existence, they also have ports there, but they have like the little miniature game controller that they just like shove into the hole, like no umbilical. but
Yeah.
that's ultimately just because they're taking on them doing that. That's like their passport. That was like their ID and stuff. That's what that was for. I just remember that was just like an additional ridiculous thing. But yeah, back into the real world. Oh yeah, well yeah. There's like at some point she's like looking at herself, and then like she has like this headgear on and this arm gear on while in the game.
Yes.
And then it finally pulls out, and they're back in that church area, and everybody has like more conventional VR on.
Yeah, it's like more like technology than just weird organic stuff.
Yeah.
It's more like tech that we would understand. And then they talk to the real game designer, and they shoot him and his assistant.
Well, they have their dog that they hid guns on with a fake
their
dog
dog.
fur.
Fake fur, and they just pull out guns, and the dog just kind of casually walks away, away at everyone.
And then the game they're making on the real world is called Transcendence.
Yeah.
With oddly capitalized places. Because Existence is lowercase e, capital X, ISTEN, capital Z.
Yes. Yeah, it's a weird spelling.
Everything has weird spellings. And they're doing and that's where everybody in the group is, talking about like the characters they played, and like, it's like, yeah, like my character died too early, but like you were really good.
Yeah, because all of them are there. Like, Ian Holm, Willem Dafoe, everyone from the game is like in the actual world of Transcendence.
Yeah.
And then and then they shoot the guy, his assistant, and because they're now what do they represent in the real world?
I don't like a version of the realist faction or whatever.
They don't. I always thought there was a religious subtext to it, but I
yeah.
don't know.
Well, I think I've said something about like the David Cronenberg based this on like Salman Rushdie when came out with that book and
came out.
Yeah. So it was sort of supposed to be like that, just But they kill a bunch of people in there, and then they aim the guns at the guy who played the Chinese waiter. And then like he's like, hold on, I can't remember exactly what he says. He's like, just tell me, is this really real?
Yeah.
And it just ends right there.
Cuts to credits. You don't know if he gets shot or not.
Yeah.
So overall, an entertaining movie. A weird movie.
Yeah, well, it's a Cronenberg movie, but so.
Now, someone said this was his last body horror movie.
Sure. Yeah, History of Violence and Eastern Promises are all conventional stuff, but still have some sort of like violent happen upon people. So yeah. But yeah, it's not like people like, doing self-surgery on weird alien tumors and
Or putting lipstick on their back butts. Just lubricate it. Yes. Everyone looks really weird while they're doing it. Yeah. It was all shot deliberately that way. Have this weird sexy undertone, but it wasn't sexy. It was gross.
Did anybody actually have sex in the movie? I can't remember. I thought it was like attempted and then it was stopped.
Yeah, him and Jude Law and Jennifer Jason Leigh do, but it doesn't. It's like abortive. I don't think it's. I think it was, again, this had to do with their sub characters. Like, we have to fall in love.
Yeah.
I don't feel love or anything. I'm a very wooden actor. Yeah, so fun, weird movie. Very reminiscent of Naked Lunch, kind of.
Yeah, well,
Naked 7 years before this.
Yeah, Naked Lunch has a very specific kind of weirdness, but that's based on a book.
Yeah, it's based on William Burroughs' novel, basically about heroin addiction and writing.
And like I think this one, like why I would compare it as like a companion piece of Videodrome, because like it's Videodrome's about like the technology of the time and like what's the weirdest thing you can extrapolate about it, and like getting here with Existence, it's like instead of cable TV and satellite dishes, the video games.
Yeah. Thing about one of the because I did see that connection, but it was like this was because TV had been around what, like 30 or 40 years by the time Videodrome came out.
Yeah.
They actually had something to kind of build off of, whereas this they just had to sort of make it up out of whole cloth.
Yeah. You didn't really get the feeling that Cronenberg played video games.
No. You knew a lot about TV and like especially weird Canadian sub-licensed TV where it's all softcore porn and horror. It's like, yeah, that is polluting our society.
But also, there's they don't really hit on this a lot, but like, there's a ton of video game development that happens in Canada.
Yeah.
Like it's like it's gigantic. Like almost the best video games out there are usually made in Canada.
Oh, okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah, because it's like the way they make television there, where there's government subsidies for doing that there. So there's like just it's like almost like all Ubisoft games are made in Canada. I mean, some of them are in France too, but or actually all over the world. But a lot of EA stuff is made in Canada. Like just there's Eidos has a bunch of studios in Canada. It's just cheaper to create a studio in Canada and get people there, and there's a lot of like schools there that are specified towards that. But
Oh, okay.
so yeah, so I didn't know if that was like a thing. Like, you know, this is a Canadian movie. I wonder if that crept in at all, but like not really. But I know it's there. You know, the Cronenberg consult the video game community.
Yeah, and the internet wasn't. It was a thing then for sure,
Yeah.
but it wasn't like in full.
No. It was still like message boards and shit. And Yahoo was like your search engine.
Yep, that's still a thing.
Barely.
Ask Jeeves. So yeah, existence. Check it out. A stroll down memory lane.
A weird inception.
Yes. Weird. Yeah, like I said, all the equipment in this looks like something you buy in a sex shop.
All
All
right.
right. Well, do you have anything else?
Nope.
All right. Well, this week for the American Greed Factory podcast, this is Nathan.
This is Conlon. Goodbye, America.